All right, I have 2:01, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our second ISPA reopening town hall. So excited to get this one started. But before we do, I just wanted to give a real quick recap from last week. Last week, we had over 500 people register for the town hall, and we had over 1,000 Facebook views, which is just awesome to see. So thank you for all those who've signed up today. We have, I think, 495. It might even be higher now, but the last number I heard was 495 sign up for today. So we're going to get started here real quick, but I want to thank you all for joining. Today, our conversation is going to cover a lot of front of house activities and the overall guest experience so far. Last week was back of house. This week is more front of house. And so we have an amazing group of panelists this week who will all introduce themselves here in a minute. But I wanted to just reassure everyone that all of our panelists, we've tried to choose panelists who have already opened their spas. So they're literally, again, boots on the ground, living, breathing, working with guests. And so we're looking forward to hearing their insights today. But before we get started, I want to once again express our sincere appreciation to both Living Earth Crafts and Resort Suite for their generous support of this town hall. Again, if you were on the call last week, you know to hang on till the end. I'm excited that almost all 500 stayed on till the end last time because we have some amazing products to give away, courtesy of both of our sponsors. So stick on, hang on till the end for that because you don't want to miss that. So anyways, with that, let's go ahead and get our panel discussion started. I'm thrilled to pass things over once again to Patrick Huey, who will serve as our moderator today. Patrick, take us away.
Thank you so much, Garrett. I'm loving that we're able to keep doing these town halls and keep supporting our community as we reopen our spas. It's great, and I'm excited to be a part of the process. I want to go through a few housekeeping things before we get started. I know we've all been on a million Zoom calls over the past few months, so you know the etiquette. So please mute your system. As Garrett alluded to, we have about 450 people registered plus Facebook Live. So if we're all muted, we can all hear what the panelists have to say. We do have questions prepared, but what makes this a great experience is when you ask us questions. So use your chat and feed us questions, and we'll work them in with our preset questions. You're on speaker view right now, so you can only see us, the beautiful panel. You can't see yourself or the other attendees with you. And we are recording this town hall. So if you have to step away for a minute or you want to go back and catch something up again, you can pick it up again later. We'll have these posted online for you as well. So we're going to move into our discussion without further ado. And we have a great group of panelists today who will be introducing themselves to you after we ask the first set of questions. So we're going to start with the first question, which I think is a really great question. I'm going to go to you first, Megan. And I want to know, how did you communicate the reopening of your spa to your guests? So you were closed for some time, and then you had to go back into the market and let them know we're back in business. What was that process like for you?
I'm Megan. I'm from Gadabout Salon Spas in Tucson, Arizona. We have 5 Gadabout locations. We have 2 Reveille locations, which are smaller. We are primarily salon. We have day spas, and we closed March 21st was our first day closed. We reopened with a soft opening on May 8th, and then our phase 1 was May 12th, and then we are back at probably about 80% capacity now. We did the majority of our communication through email and phone calls. So our salon software doesn't have a lot of capability for texting or communication that way. So we really honed in on email addresses and connecting with our team and our guests through emails, through social, through our website, and then good old-fashioned phone calls. And it was amazing because during quarantine, everyone picked up the phone.
They picked up, correct? They picked up. Yeah. And what was your open rate on your emails? Do you know how responsive? Were you seeing better response by phone call?
Our email rates were double, triple what they usually were without even giving anything away. It was mostly just like a message. Mm-hmm. And I want to say it's in the 30% rate. And
that's really good.
our phone calls were, they were great. They were excellent. Our average call time was like 4 to 5 minutes. So, but being in quarantine, people had no one to talk to, so they got to talk to us.
That's great. And through your reopening process, Megan, did you learn anything that you would do differently? I know you said you used emails and phone calls. Did you learn anything that you would do differently in that process?
The thing I would have done differently is brought our guest service team back sooner to help with the phone calls, to help with the connection, to help with that outbound piece. While we were furloughed, or while our team was furloughed, the only people working were our salaried leadership teams, so our general managers, and then our office. And so it was like very few hands on deck to help manage the thousands of phone calls that we needed. And then we weren't able to take inbound calls again until we officially opened. So we only had 3 days notice of when we were like allowed to open. So it's wishful thinking that we would have brought our guest service team back sooner. But
right, thank you. And Derek, at Four Seasons, how did it go for you? How did you communicate that reopening to you have residents, members, and outside guests, I would assume, correct?
Yeah. And so that our resort reservation team stayed on, so we never really had a broken channel. But the different guest demographics sort of dictated our phasing. So we started phasing spa services in with our salon, and we started that on May 19th. And this was a reach out to residents and members. This is an easy group for us to maintain communication with. We then started to, like Megan just said, extend invitations via telephone to our super users, people that were, watchfully waiting for us to come back. And since last week we announced that we'll open the resort on July 1st, we'll go full throttle spa at that point as well. And so it's been social media blasts, starting to get the message up on our website.
Derek,
go ahead.
So Derek, you're at the Four Seasons in Orlando with Disney. Is there any sort of communication with the park in terms of when you reopen? Is that guiding some of your choices about reopening?
Yeah, great question. Early on it did. Primarily our leisure travel is here with Disney. And so, that's a big component of their stay. We realized, maybe a month into the closure that we'd probably be extending our downtime if we were waiting for Disney to open. And so what we did was we just extended a drive market rate and said that we'll open on July 1st. Some of that got confused a little bit by the NBA coming to town and what's that going to do to occupancy. And in any event, we kind of put a line in the sand saying July 1st is our open, irrespective of what Disney chooses to do. And since we had picked that date, we've started to see that some of their facilities are opening. Disney Springs is open now, so this bodes well for us. That's
great. And I know you were in a phased opening process, so if you could do anything differently from that go time, would you make any changes or think about it differently? How would you shift that if you could?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I'm liking, and my team is liking as our guests, the telephone communication. So, that's been a blessing to kind of navigate with them how we're going to reopen and what it's going to look like. But I would say, heaven hopes we don't ever have to do this again, but knowing what I know now, I wish I had these phased communications ready to go. Megan said she had 3 days notice. We're all sort of dealing with the same thing. When will the state allow it? And when does your executive team greenlight it? If I knew what the phases would be in advance, I would have the communication and all the background components ready to go.
So what I'm hearing from you and from Megan is that we're getting limited go dates, and that if we can sort of be pre-thinking about what those documents need to be, what the templates need to be, waivers, et cetera, to have those sort of like nuts and bolt pieces in place, to have that ready to go, even if it's only here before you can put it into actual format, so that we can be more responsive with the shorter opening times. Would you say that's an accurate description for both you and Megan?
Yep, and the team that you'll need to support you in those phases. You have to have all the conversations up front.
That's great. And Kelly, I know you've just reopened. So if you could tell us where you're from, how long you've been opened, and tell us how your communication was before you reopened the hotel, the hotel and spa, that'd be great.
Yes, so Kelly Martin, I'm with the Edgewater in Madison, Wisconsin. We just opened on last Friday, so we were open for 4 days. We are closed 2 days a week now, just in this first process, but so we're actually closed today, which I said this earlier. I was taking calls all morning, so that's how I spent my morning, which was great. Yeah, I think the opening process, it's been a challenge, but I think we were ready. The toolkit from ISPA really helped prepare us. We took that and really made an orientation for our staff to get them ready. Things that I would do different, I would bring them back earlier. We brought them back on Tuesday and we opened on Friday. 2 days was really just getting them oriented to new processes and things. Mm-hmm. But we did one dry run. I called it our dress rehearsal, which we actually had other staff that were here book appointments so we could run our desk through it and everything, as well as the technicians, and have them actually perform services, because it is different wearing a mask through, massage and facials and things like that. But I think I would have done that for 2 days, just because for me, I worked the entire time. I forgot that my staff had not been working for almost 3 months, and they haven't been doing a lot of stuff. So coming back and doing a lot of massage or just a lot of any service was a lot for them. So trying to ease them back in a little bit slower, I think would have been, but that's also hard because, I know owners and things are like, we need to start seeing that revenue to bring people back. So that's the fine line, I guess.
That's great. Thank you, Kelly. And Gary, same question. Your opening messaging, your communication, how that worked, and what you would do differently if you had the chance to go back and do it again.
Perfect. Good afternoon. I'm Gary Burton, Director of Spa at the Ritz-Carlton in Amelia Island. It's in Northeast Florida, for those aren't familiar. We were pleasantly surprised with the amount of demand that had been pent up over 3 months. We first started off by only marketing to our hotel guests that were in-house, first and foremost, because we're a resort. So we wanted to take care of our hotel guests before we did our local. And we opened right before Memorial Day weekend with a very small team, not really knowing if people were going to book spa treatments yet. And we were sold out right away. So it was very positive. So the message that we sent out to our hotel guests were via the turn down letters when they have turned down, partnering with our front desk team to making sure they know that we're open. And then now we've obviously expanded out to our local and membership. And now we're almost like Megan said, we're almost 80% staffed again. We're seeing, almost numbers before this all happened, which is great, especially on the weekends. We've been very fortunate. This happened over the vacation period. People are traveling to Florida. They're driving to Florida. And our resort's been fortunate to have some pretty good occupancy. So for us, the message wasn't so difficult because, when we opened it, they came. We didn't have to go out and push really hard because we had the demand within the hotel.
That's great. That's great. And Garrett, how about, I know you just reopened your this past week, I believe, or last week.
Yeah, so again, I'm Garrett. I am the Director of Sales, Marketing, and Spa here at Blue Harbor Resort in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. We opened last week, Thursday. I don't have a lot new to add. The only thing I would say is we are under very much I'll call it a spending freeze. And so we haven't been able to do a lot to market that the spa is open. So we've been forced to kind of go back to old school tactics, over communicating with our hotel guests upon arrival, before they arrive, while they're here, through our signage throughout the hotel. And so we're really trying to do some basic blocking and tackling, if you will, from a marketing standpoint to get the word out, email, get it out as much to the locals. And we too, like Gary and some of the others here, we were slammed our first weekend. We were at, I want to say 90% occupancy in our spa, while the hotel was only at like 30% occupancy. So there was that pent up demand. And now my challenge is, how do I keep that demand going without a marketing budget? So I hope that pent up demand lasts a while. And that's the challenge I'm up against now, is how do I continue that demand without a lot of money to spend?
That's great. And I see a question from Paul Wright about sense of arrival and making sure that guests feel secure with a sense of arrival into the spas. My question would be, and I know it could be somewhat of a hot topic, is are you or are you not taking temperatures of your guests upon arrival? And if you are not, what is your thought process behind that? I'm going to go back to you, Megan, because I know you had a very unique story with temperature taking.
We do. We are not currently taking temperatures for our guests. We actually this week, so week 4, have introduced a service agreement for our guests to sign that says that they're not experiencing symptoms. We believed it was so important for our employees that we didn't overwhelm them with all of these changes and all of this new happening the very first day we reopened. So we have all of our standards or protocols that we're doing. We have those printed out. We have those hung in the salons. We have those that we've emailed out. Then we have what the guest expectations should be. So what we've changed that we're asking them to change along with us. So we're not changing into gowns for your hair color service. We're not having any spa water. We're cashless salon, like all of the expectations that we need them to know. And so they receive that via their phone confirmation. We're doing all of our confirmations via phone right now. And then they're greeted at the door before they come in and are given the explanations. They're also asked to either wait in their car or outside. We have all of our lobbies outside. We don't have any lobbies inside right now. And it's Tucson. It's 105, 107. And if we were taking all of our guest temperatures, it's too hot. I mean, I have my temperature checked, and driving from salon to salon, if my air conditioner is not like high blast blowing on me, I am overheated. So we are taking our team's temperatures before arrival, and we actually do that at the front door. So the guests see it happening. They see that we're going through and taking all of these precautions. And then, so that's kind of where we're at.
That's great. Thank you. Kelly, what about you? Are you taking temperatures of your associates and your guests? How are you approaching that?
Yeah, we actually aren't. We were going to. And then after consulting with our employment attorney, and it's just same thing. We couldn't get accurate readings depending on who was doing it and where it was. So we decided not to do it. So we have a health verification form that our employees fill out every day. If they do, it's right at the time clock, and they have to give it to a manager or supervisor before they go anywhere else in the building. My office is right by the time clock, so I get to see everyone every day, which is great. And we also are sending it to our guests. Our system, booking system, does allow us to have, we've converted all of our intake forms and that health verification form to electronic. So they're able to fill that out prior to their arrival. It comes back to us. We do have paper copies. Some people, aren't tech savvy, but I will say the guests have been super great about it. If they don't see it in the email, because we're telling them when they book, that they're calling and saying, "Oh, can you resend it? I didn't get it." So that's been really helpful.
And have you had to modify your questionnaire? That's a question coming through from our viewers today. Have you had to modify your questionnaire to fit what's happening with the current COVID crisis?
Well, we did not change our form at all for specific services, but we have the separate health verification form that just basically asks 4 questions. It asks if you have any symptoms of COVID. It asks if you've traveled to any area that's on the kind of the restricted hot list, which is
you're having a bit of trouble with your sound, Kelly. I'm going to pop over to Derek, and Derek asked you the same question. If you had to modify your intake form, COVID.
Yes, still here. We did.
And then
1 second.
It asks if you've been around anybody.
Kelly? Okay, Derek. So if you had any...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're going to come back to you in just a second, Kelly.
Okay.
So Derek, did you have to modify your intake form based upon the current situation?
Yeah. Guest intake form, confirmation letters, reminder letters, a lot of that's electronic. So we'll have that do the work for us where we can. Paper copies for redundancy when guests arrive. We have had no pushback from our, again, small demographic of resident and members. And we will take temperatures for all guests coming into the resort, which is, the preponderance of our spa guests. But we will also take day guest temperatures directly at the spa.
Any pushback from the day guests coming from outside to have their temperatures taken?
I anticipate that we will see that, and we're trying to, create every sort of, occurrent permutation, just every eventuality we want to plan for. I do think we'll see pushback. We don't see any with the guests that we do have, which again are locals, and they spend a lot of time with us already. So I think when we start to see guests en masse, the plan will be every contingency for what happens when it turns red. What happens when a guest, disputes this? What do we do? And again, we'd like to communicate all of that up front. If you arrive with a temperature, one of the questions on our guest intake is, are you comfortable having your temperature taken? Where the process stops if they answer no. And then we advise them to call the spa to discuss. And we'll just say, if you don't want to do it, then we won't be able to book you at this time.
That's done on the online questionnaire form. If they have issues with having their temperature taken, you nip it out the bud before they are at your front desk, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, again, ideally, and everything works in theory, but we will also have that conversation with our guests on the phone. So, we would like to prepare them and set up the anticipation for the safety precautions we have in place.
That's great. And Gary, are you taking temperatures down on Amelia Island? What's your stance on that?
We are taking temperatures for our employees, and they must wear a mask at all times while on property, but not for our hotel guests. Marriott has made the decision not to do that, so we're following that process. And also, our intake form is verbal, so we ask that at the time of booking about the last 14 days, any of those potential areas they may have traveled to or any symptoms they may have, and then we reconfirm that at check-in that nothing's changed since they booked their service. So for us, it's just the employees that we're doing at this point.
Now, I know Amelia Island is a luxury property. How are you handling and this comes from Deborah Myers from the Mandarin in DC. How are you handling the luxury component of spa, given the amount of changes we're having to make in response to COVID? And I'll come to you, Kelly, and then Garrett after Gary.
So I think the biggest change in the feedback that we've gotten from our guests is we've sort of taken everything away from our guests. The amenities, the buffet style snacks, the magazines, the throw pillows, all of those things that are communal that we like to, sort of cuddle up with while we're at the relaxation lounges and things like that. So we're slowly moving through finding alternatives. Like for instance, we just switched over to a prepackaged snack that a guest can use. They're 1.5 ounces. So they're not, doing that themselves. We're making tea for them versus them making it for themselves. We're just essentially trying to find a workaround for all of those things that we took for granted before all this happened. So we're getting feedback from our guests. Well, if we can't do this, what would you like for us to do? And again, that was like, the prepackaged snack thing was one of the feedbacks from our guests. So those are the things that we're getting most of the feedback from a luxury customer, because they're used to that extra level and layer of amenities and things for our guests.
And have you reopened your gyms? I'm seeing a question come through about gyms. Did you reopen your fitness centers also?
We did. In the state of Florida, you didn't have to close your gyms at all if you were in a hotel. So you just couldn't have more than 10 people in the gym at one time. So throughout this whole time, the hotel remained open. We were able to accommodate that, but we have opened fully the gym now. We have it staffed about 12 hours a day. We used to be 24 hours. And we've taken all the cardio equipment and every other one we've taken out of service. So there's some social distancing. And guests have been happy with that. And we haven't really had any negative feedback for the most part.
Great. Thank you. Kelly, you wanted to respond as well to that question.
All right, they muted me. Yeah, I think am I locked up?
You're frozen a little bit. I'm going to skip to you, Garrett. You also wanted to respond to that question as well.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of questions come in kind of along this topic, so I'll chime in on a couple things. But yes, we are not taking temperatures of our staff or our guests, actually. We did add 3 questions to our intake form. Have you had a fever in the last 72 hours? Have you been sick in the last 72 hours? Or have you been in close contact with anybody with COVID? So those are 3 questions we added to our intake form. Immediately when the guest comes in, they're going to notice all of our staff are wearing masks. There is glass up in front of the front desk, so you can't exchange any germs via that way. We use single-use pens, meaning once you use the pen, we immediately clean it and put it away and bring out a new one for the next guest. We have hand sanitizer everywhere. Similar to what Gary was saying, we've social distance our guest relaxation areas. We've gotten rid of all the snacks. We only basically have bottled water now upon request, and we'll give that out. We've installed, like I said, sanitizers throughout. So yeah, I mean, the guests immediately, we give them a heads up before they come that a lot has changed, but as soon as they walk in, they immediately notice a lot of those change, and we're seeing a lot of them are very appreciative of those changes. One thing we're not doing, which I know some others are, we're not requiring our guests to really do anything different other than wash their hands pre-service. So they're not wearing a mask, but all the safety protocols, if you will, are done on the spa side and the spa staff side.
That's great. And I see from Shaw Cote a great question, and I'll refer back to you, Derek, on this. If you're not having your guests wear masks, are you getting any pushback from the staff on having to work on guests who are not wearing masks? And then after Derek, Megan, I'll go to you with that same question.
Yeah, I can only answer hypothetically. We are having our guests wear masks, so that's covered. But I have heard from almost the entirety of my team. Everybody has a different opinion about this, I realize. But if we're going to take precautions on one side, why wouldn't we take it on the other? So if the staff's going to do it, why won't the guests do it? I have heard that feedback from my team here locally in Florida, but we will have our guests in masks.
And Megan?
We started when our internal conversation originally was it was going to be optional for the guests to wear a mask, where they could, if they felt more comfortable, they could wear it. Doing hair services to be able to do cut and color while the guest has a mask on was challenging. In the spa for a massage, how are you going to wear a mask when you're face down? Like a lot of these conversations. And how we worked through that was our team actually said they don't feel comfortable working on a guest that's not wearing a mask. And so we ended up reinforcing that all the guests have to wear a mask. And we've actually had a lot of pushback from our guests not wanting to wear masks. And our technical team they've taken the stance. And so we have some disposable masks, but the like saving grace that we've had, especially in our hair department, is we have these plastic handheld face shields, and they're like plexiglass. They're the old, if you remember from the 80s, the old hairspray little shields that you would put on. But we got one for every one of our service providers, hair and spa. And so if there's a service where it's inconvenient to wear a mask, we give the guests this handheld face shield and they hold it right up to their nose. We describe how to do it. And so while they're processing with color in their hair, everybody's got a face shield up. And so it's taking kind of that stigma of, oh, I have to wear a mask away, and it's given them the freedom to breathe, even though they have plastic in front of them. So one of our solutions are workarounds.
That's great. I will say I didn't say this in the beginning, but I do work for Montage International. I'm their corporate spa director, and we have implemented temperature taking across the brand for guests and for associates. And I know that people may have different opinions about that, but that is the decision that we took to have temperatures taken as an extra layer of caution. I think Sean Hallam has a great question. In terms of handling flow within your properties, are you staggering appointment times? Are you allowing just open booking given the amount of time that you have available for services? Gary, do you have any insight into that?
Sure, we are, we're not necessarily staggering appointment times. We have a 26-room spa. We only have about 10 of our massage therapists back, so we are able to space out our treatment rooms, and we also are a pretty large facility. So we have the ability to social distance without all of that happening. So we didn't necessarily have to stagger our times. What we did do is add an additional 25 minutes on the end of every treatment for proper cleaning. So just by doing that, it sort of made the books a little more staggered than you normally would, booking on the hour every hour. So everything's now on the 15s and the 45s, and took a little bit of time to retrain the staff to book, in that new process. So it's sort of done it on its own, kind of organically. It staggers itself a little bit.
And are you allowing guests to use the locker facilities and change into robes, or
we are?
You are using them.
Full locker facilities where we have locker attendants that are monitoring the social distancing, the amount of people that can go in the steam room and the sauna and the whirlpool at one time. We're strictly watching that and making recommendations to our guests if more than the amount of people are in there that, we need to have someone come out for a little while or whatnot. So
I'm going to stay with you for one moment, Gary, because I'm seeing questions come through for you. So you're operating with half the capacity in terms of therapists. So have you assigned your therapist 2 rooms and someone cleans the room for them as they go from treatment to treatment? Or how is that working?
So they're cleaning their room at the end of every treatment. We give them an additional 25 minutes to ensure that the sanitizer we use needs to sit for 5 minutes. So by the time they've pulled their linens out of the room, we ask them not to hoard their linens till the end of the day to make sure they're taking it out every hour. They spray the room down, they go take their things, they come back and they wipe it down. So it gives the disinfectant time to sit. And then they're also hitting all those hard surfaces, door handles, anywhere a guest may have touched throughout. So we feel that that's the right amount of time. And then we also have our overnight cleaners that are doing a deep clean every night of the spa after it closes. So the process that we've had in place seems to have worked pretty well so far.
Kelly, how are you approaching that in terms of occupancy in your spa? Are you assigning 2 rooms to 1 therapist, or are you giving more time between treatments? What's your approach to that?
We're giving more time between treatments. Every treatment has a half hour in between, which it used to just have 15 minutes. So I will say after the first 2 days, the therapists were like, that's too much. We don't need enough, because they can't book as many services with that time.
Right.
But our locker rooms can't be open right now due to our county order. So the unknown is the guest changing in the room. So until we go to phase 3, which I don't know when that will be, we will continue to keep that 30 minutes in between.
That's great. And we've all sort of, and I'll come to you on this, Derek, and then to Garrett on this question. We're all talking that we're being 90% booked or 80% booked. Are those percentages based upon your availability, your available therapist, or your overall capacity within your spas? Derek?
Mine is based upon our availability. So we're purposely going slow and trying to, restrict to only the volume that we're comfortable with. Like everybody else has said, we do the same thing. We build in a little extra time between services. Our space and size dictates that we probably won't run into a bottleneck with that capacity on treatments, and super sanitation all the way through. So all the processes that everybody else is using as well.
And are you using, I'm seeing some questions come through the feed about the type of sanitation devices are you using? Are you using sprayers? Are you using wipes? What are you using?
We are using wipes. We are using spray and rag, an Ecolab product, better. We are using an electrostatic gun. And then again, we have the night cleaner team that comes through and hits everything fogs twice a week. Really, hopefully, because we've done a good job throughout the day.
That's great. And Garrett, what about you? Are you basing your occupancy numbers on the full capacity of the spa or the available therapist? How are you looking at that?
We're doing available therapists. So we're also doing 2 treatment rooms per therapist, allowing a half hour in between services for cleaning. If the therapist is booked back to back, which is why we did the 2 rooms, because we didn't want to take, income out of the therapist's pocket, then we have a spa attendant or front desk person will go clean that room. If the therapist has time, they are expected to clean it on their own. And I've seen a question come through, am I paying my therapist for that? Absolutely. I can't expect a commissioned employee to do that work. So I am paying $8 an hour for the therapist as well, just to get me through that, which I think, they appreciate. And we've done other things in the room as well to try to make the guests more comfortable. Like I think I said this last week, we got rid of the comforter on the top of the table and we just have doubled up the sheets. So that way we can have clean everything, linen every single time. And we're pointing that out. And we're really trying to, as I said, maybe earlier, we're trying to over communicate with the guest, almost to an annoyance, I guess, but just to really make those guest concerns go away and immediately know that they're in a safe place. And so ISPA has been great with some of those tools and tips and things of what to say. And we've been trying to follow that.
I think we're all using the ISPA toolkit as a roadmap through this process. I think it's been incredibly helpful for all of us. I know we're using them at Montage as well. I did have a question come through, and I'll go to you, Gary, because I know that you have a larger spa down in Amelia Island. Are you allowing guests to use steam, sauna, etc., or are those options off the table for right now?
We do have our locker rooms fully open in the steam, sauna, and whirlpool. We do have a limit of how many people can be in there, so they're 6 feet apart. And in most cases, it's 2 to 3 people at a time in our steam room. And we explain that to the guests when they check in.
And what are you using to clean the steam room to ensure that we are maintaining the proper sanitation standards?
So we're using the same hospital grade disinfectant that we're using in the treatment rooms. And that's done after each guest leaves by one of our attendants. They go in and sanitize the areas they were sitting on. We do encourage them to sit on towels. Obviously, we do it anyway. And the whirlpool, based on our feedback from our pool attendants, that the chlorine is enough to kill anything that would be in there. So we're just ensuring we're sanitizing the areas around the whirlpool, not necessarily the water. Obviously, that's going to take care of itself.
Kelly, I see you shaking your head. Yes. Have you guys reopened your amenities as well?
Yes. So locker rooms can't be open, but oddly enough, the pool can be open, and so can the gyms at limited capacity, which is odd because there's nowhere for people to change. But hotel guests can use them as well, so it's really open for hotel guests. But we have had a few day guests come in and just change into their swimsuit after their treatment. And yeah, I will say we have those, like what you can expect from us, our promise to our guests, and we have them kind of everywhere. And there's a lot of info, and I didn't think anyone would actually stand and read them. And I had more guests this weekend reading them and really just saying thank you. So I think most guests are really appreciative, but they definitely are watching.
Is that your experience, Megan?
Yeah, they're definitely.
Megan, is that your experience in the salon as well, in terms of the guests being very keyed into what your sanitation process is for the salons?
So much so. The perception is everything. The perception of the guest, what we're doing, so often we do all this cleaning. I mean, in all of these properties I know, they've been clean for years, right? It's not necessarily something that is new to us, but it's like taking it and putting it in front of the curtain instead of doing it behind the curtain. So we're like cleaning everything while the guest is watching. We want them to see that every doorknob is getting touched every 15 minutes, that every high touch area is being sanitized, that we're sanitizing the chair right behind them while they're standing there so that they can see it. We have signs everywhere that go on every seat when there's no guest there after they've been sanitized that say this station has been sanitized for your protection, this table has been sanitized for your protection. And it's just how the perception of the guests, we want them to feel safe. Sanitation is the new luxury, and in our industry we've always been regulated to be sanitary and clean and disinfect, but now it's like the guest is more aware of it and they want to see you doing it.
We're getting lots of questions through, and I'll come to you, Derek, first with this, about services, if you've restricted services, and then also, are you offering couples massages? Derek? Yes.
Again, we're going to start spa services on July 1, so we're not down that road, but we are scheduling these services. Couples, if you're the same household, and you still have to pass all the same muster that you would have if you were coming in individually, waivers and temperature checks.
That's great.
We will restrict facial massage from the massage therapist and allow it during facials. We're going to restrict steam in facials and work with warm towels and some of the other technology that we have. So there are some limitations, but they're very few.
And Garrett, what about you? What about your spot there, Blue Harbor?
Yeah, so we have almost our full service menu back up. Right now, we still have no Vichy. In our massages, we're still not doing face or head massage. We are doing facials, but we are not doing extractions. And we are doing no facial waxing and no makeup. So, but other than that, we are basically everything else is a go.
Great. Gary, have you made modifications to your offerings at this point?
Pretty much exactly what Garrett just said. We've stopped. We're not doing wet treatments right now because of the Vichy shower or hydrotherapy tubs. Just from a cleaning standpoint, that's not something we're ready to tackle yet. We want to just ensure we're on the safe side there. And then makeup as well, which unfortunately we do a lot of weddings here, and that's been a little bit tricky. We have had some weddings the last few weekends. So we are working with our guests. If they bring their own makeup, we'll assist them. But we're just not doing our makeup right now as well.
And how, if you have to deny a service? Yes, Kelly, go ahead. Yes.
I was just going to say our very first appointment on Friday when we opened was a bride. And we did hair and makeup, but our estheticians who did the makeup wore a face shield. And the bride was very much like, I'll do whatever I can just to get in. And I didn't even upcharge her for that, but joking. But she was super appreciative, and I talked to my staff before that because I knew a couple weeks before if they were comfortable, if they were in a shield and a mask, and they were. So that's because we also do a lot of weddings, and I couldn't imagine us not doing them. So, but I made sure before we booked it with the staff.
That's great. Megan, I have a question for you related to salons specifically. I know there's some discussion about blow drying and not blow drying hair. What position has Gadabout taken on that?
So we decided to include the blow dry and keep our service whole. You know, in speaking with our friends in Georgia and the other states that kind of spearheaded the no blow drying, it was in place of time for cleaning. And we've been cleaning and disinfecting with Rejuvenate and with pure alcohol. And so the contact time as what side and Rejuvenate spray, which is like a 10-minute contact time. And using pure alcohol and using Rejuvenate is a 1-minute contact time. So the time in between service, we didn't necessarily feel like we needed the blow dry time to recover the space. And so all of our service providers, in order to reduce occupancy, are one guest, one service provider. So we're not double booking right now. And so they have their downtime in between, like while the guest is processing color, they can go outside and take their mask off and relax. So rather than cut the service short and have the guest leave with wet hair, we wanted the guest to have the full service experience and then the service provider to be able to clean in between and have downtime in a different place.
Can I ask you also to go a little bit into how you're handling your nail services? In terms of, are the providers wearing gloves? How are you handling the closeness between the guest and the service provider? So can you a little bit as well, Megan?
Yep. Yeah, so our nail services, because our guests are required to wear a mask and our service providers are all wearing a mask. During a pedicure, we're using every other pedicure throne because our thrones are a little close. So we want that social distancing for the guest and the service technicians. In the manicure space, we've provided all of our service providers with a face shield. We haven't made it mandatory that they wear that, but it is provided to them should they feel comfortable. And a few of our nail technicians don't feel comfortable wearing the face shield, so they've bought themselves a plexiglass to go on their station.
So you've left, I'm sorry, Megan, so you've left that decision up to the therapist in terms of plexiglass or face shield or?
We provided it all. So we provided a face shield to every employee that has face-to-face services. So all of our estheticians, all of our massage therapists, and all of our nail techs. And then there was a makeup conversation a minute ago, implemented face or eyes on site and lips to go. So all of our makeup services, when they schedule, we will do their makeup. So we have disposable everything and we scrape all the product off onto a palette. They do their eyes because that's usually what the guest is really looking for. Eyes, cheeks, they can still hold their face mask here. And then we charge the same service value. So I think our makeup services are $100 and something. And so they charge the same service value, but they get the choice of lip color to take with them so that they can complete their look once they're able to take their mask off.
That's very clever. That's very clever. That's very clever.
We do a lot of makeup.
I would imagine. I'm going to switch gears for one moment because I'm seeing questions come through about retail and how you modified your retail spaces, and are you seeing that as an additional, more robust stream of revenue? Gary, I'm going to go to you first. I see you unmiked yourself, so I'm going to mute yourself, so I'll go to you first on that question.
No, we've, again, been pleasantly surprised with the amount of retail that's been purchased. I think people were just not able to go out shopping, and they were missing out on their skincare and their hair care and all the things that they haven't been able to do for the last few months. We did remove all the testers from the shelves to ensure that guests aren't using those. But we haven't made a lot of altercations other than just trying to restock. Obviously, it's a ramp up there to make sure we have the inventory. But that's really it. We've seen a pretty good demand in retail. Even when we were closed as a spa, we kept our retail store open in the spa within the hotel. So we did get some of that purchasing while the hotel was open, even at low occupancy. Guests were interested in coming through and shopping through just the retail space. So
let me ask you this. Were your vendors able and your resource partners able to support the additional requirements for retail? Were they properly staffed? Do they have the goods ready to go when you needed to place orders?
Yes, we've not come across any issues with that.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been a good partnership with all of our vendors.
That's great. And Kelly, are you seeing the same demand for retail on your side?
Yes, we had a booming retail weekend, which was amazing, especially, just to kick it off. But I mean, people are buying. We're lucky because we have a huge boutique area. So clothing, I mean, just everything. I think people just are more of like, I haven't been out shopping. So, I mean, literally people are just grabbing stuff and going. So it's been really nice. We had a great weekend. We did the same thing, pulled all the testers. We have some good signage out that says, if you do want to sample something, let our desk know. And we have procedures to do that. They're, with the gloved hand, they can get a sample and give it to them on a sample stick and give it to the guest so they can try it. Because we don't want to limit their samples. We just have them put away.
So Kelly, let me ask you a question. Are you allowing returns or are all sales final?
We are not allowing returns at this time, and we are letting guests know that. It's on our collateral. Now, I will say that if somebody has a problem with a skincare product or something, reaction or something, we'll still take it back because we don't take those back anyway. We just give them a new product. So, I mean, we're being lenient on some of that stuff, but definitely clothing and things like that, we are not.
Okay, perfect. Megan, I have a question for you that came in through the feed. How are you handling sanitization of the makeup between guests? How is that working for you since you do so much makeup in your salons?
So we never actually apply makeup from the makeup unit to the guest. So all makeup brushes are wet washed, so not just the sanitation in between. But then we never take like the eyeshadow and apply the brush into the eyeshadow. We scrape the product off onto a palette and then apply from the palette to the guest. Same with lipstick, everything's taken off of the unit, put onto their color palette, and then applied to the guest.
Is that palette disposable or do you sanitize it between guests?
They're acrylic, and so they get sanitized in between guests.
Okay. That's a thank you. That was coming through on the feed. Derek, in your facility, are you allowing guests to try on clothing, or is that a no-go at this point?
Yeah, it's a no-go at this point, and it's a bridge we know we're going to have to cross. We are also, endeavoring to softly enforce all sales are final, but in the end, you're going to stand by your guest. We've talked to several vendors doing the sanitation of the resort, and what can be done to a garment and keep it, unused but sanitary, and we don't have any great answers, unfortunately. So right now, we're saying no try-ons.
Understood. Yes, Kelly.
We're actually, if guests want to try something on, they can. And we are steaming the clothes and waiting 24 hours to put them back out onto the floor.
That's great. And Garrett, how have you guys approached the retail situation? Are you allowing returns? Are you allowing guests to try on clothing in the retail store?
Yeah, so we're very similar to kind of what everyone else has been saying. We have very little clothing to begin with, so that's not a problem for us to say no trying on. I will say this is probably the one area that is policed the least, though, because, it's natural habit to grab that bottle of lotion or whatever, turn it around, read it, and then put it back on the shelf. So I've found if there's one area of the spa that I feel the most uncomfortable about. It's that retail side. We actually launched just a brand new signature line of products, which is probably the worst time to launch a product was what I was thinking, but it's actually been selling like hotcakes for us. So it's been great. To Kelly or whoever said it before, I think there's pent up demand, like they haven't been spending money. And so our retail's doing well, but I feel like internally that's the one area that gives me heartburn because we're probably not cleaning it, and controlling it like we are everywhere else in the spa.
Right. I do have a question. I'm going to go to you on this, Gary, because I think you've been open probably the longest out of all of us on the call. How are you handling if you have to deny a guest a service? So if a guest has to be refused a service, how are you handling that situation? What's your procedure and what policies do you have in place for that?
So first of all, we obviously make sure the guest understands our requirements before they come in to have a treatment. If it gets to either our front desk or our provider and they don't feel comfortable working on the guest, they're to get a leader involved. And then I can have that conversation with the guest and determine if they need to reschedule or for them not to have the service. And we're going to do that through educating the customer and educating the guest on why they shouldn't be having that service. So I've sort of taken it out of the hands of my team and put it in the hands of my leadership team. And they felt very comfortable with that. They just need to voice their concern, and we'll have the conversation with the guest.
And so is there, so the escalation is the therapist has a concern, that concern goes to you, and then do you make the final decision, or do you go to your GM or your resort manager? How are you making that final decision to deny a service to a guest?
So we haven't come to that yet. I guess if the guest was still refusing after we had a conversation with myself and the guest, then I would have to take it to my general manager or hotel manager. But I would like to think it wouldn't get to that. Once it comes to me, we're able to come up with a resolution that everyone's happy with.
That's great. And do you have those same processes, Derek, in place for the Four Seasons? Derek, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. Sorry. Same thing as Gary said. So we will, we're trying to guide our team to, do it with a modicum of empathy, right? So everybody's a little emotionally charged during this time, whether they should or shouldn't be allowed to do such and such. So we really want to try to reach them where they are and advise. They've heard all of this information up front through confirmations and through scheduling. So hopefully, to date, we have not had any instances where we had to get, where it got sticky. But our escalation policy is very much the same. It would go to a spa leader. It would ultimately come to me. And beyond that, we have resort steps in place that engages our security team. So it's I do have a safety net. We have not had to touch it yet, and I'm thankful for that.
That's great. So we're actually at time. That conversation went really, really fast. There was some really good feedback. I apologize for the technical difficulties we had. It's Zoom, it happens sometimes, but there was really good information for everyone. I'm going to toss it back to you, Garrett, and thank the panelists. Thank you very much. And the people who attended today, we really appreciate your time. So Garrett, back to you.
Yeah, what awesome conversation. I want to also echo Patrick's comments to thank not only our panelists, but also thank you, Patrick, for being such an awesome moderator. And I once again want to thank our amazing sponsors, Living Earth Crafts and Resort Suites, for their incredible support of this town hall. If you're looking at the screen now, you see our lucky winners. Congratulations to all of you. If you happen to see your name up there, a member from the ISPA staff will reach out to you and give you some more details on how to get those gifts. So again, thank you to them. I guess before I go, the only thing I would want to do is remind everyone that we are doing this exact same town hall next week, except we have a new topic. It's going to be on financial planning and recovery, so you won't want to miss that. Again, 2 p.m. Eastern. We hope to see you all there. Share this on social media. Let's get the word out and help all of our spa brothers and sisters out there so that they are informed of what's going on so that they can be prepared to open. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Patrick, again, and thank you, ISPA, for putting this on.